Hello there, I'm making this video for anyone out there that's wanting to take their Jeep Comanche and convert it to four-wheel drive. This is a little bit of background on this one here. Mine is a 1989, came with the factory 2.5 4-cylinder, 5-speed manual. I bought this Jeep years ago. I actually drove it through college. But it's always been an ongoing project. I'm finally getting around to converting it to four-wheel drive like I've always wanted. Actually, this is going to be a kind of a two-part thing, considering I do this on as I have time at my leisure. Currently, I need it out of here because it's spring. I need to get the mower out, and I've kind of boxed myself in, so kind of extra motivation. As for the drivetrain that I'm using, I've gotten a transmission, a 5-speed transmission, and at the X5. Here's the old 2-wheel drive one. But the donor that's in it currently is an AX5 5-speed out of a, I believe it was a 95 Wrangler. At least that's what I was told by the person I bought it from, but it already had the transfer case on the back, so that's what I started out with. Years and years ago, I acquired all these parts. So, like I said, this is a budget build. And I've been doing this all off theory. And my big problem I've always had with this thing was, and like many other people have, is the internal slave cylinder. They're junk. I've had like 5 of them go out of this thing over the years. There's like 2 or 3 that were in a row, like within the week. It was awful. Anyway, so the obviously the 95 Wrangler transmission that I am using is a newer style, so it's got the external slave. Let me see if I can get a good view of it. There it is. Which so far feels great, way better than the old internal is. Some things I'll be going over will be just like minor differences between the transmissions. Like I said, this is as far as I know, it's the factory 89 5-speed AX5. There's not a whole lot of differences between the bell housings. The ports are still there, even on the newer one that's in it. But basically, all I've done, let's see. Mine had a sensor here and here, which I've taken them out and swapped them over. And on mine, it was a mechanical speedometer sensor, whatever you want to call it. This is off the 95. It's electronic somehow, some form. I don't know. So, and it seems like it's just a straight swap. I haven't driven it yet, so I'll have to let you know if that works. It's just, like I said, I've been doing this all off theory and some stuff. I read off forums, but, take all that with a grain of salt. This actually is the shifter off the AX5 that I put in it, because it being out of a Wrangler, the shifter is a little different. And I've tried to put it in mine and see what happens. So you put it forward, you basically smack the dash. So there is minor differences there, but it all swaps over. It all swaps fairly easily. Another technical difference has to do with the transfer case. The Comanches and the Cherokees shared the same transfer case, while the Wranglers were a little different, and it's how they're clocked back here. A Wrangler's clocked more up, the XJs and MJs are clocked more down. This one's out of a Wrangler. I was kind of worried about fitment. As you can see, it clears, which I on all the forums I'd seen, everyone talks about hearing about a difference, but no one ever said, well, it'll fit. Except for one person said it fit, and they posted a picture about as clear as my video here. You can see it clears just fine. I didn't have to pound out the floorboard anymore. Yeah, don't mind all the rust. That's a project for another day, but it still runs and drives, and it's a functional truck, so it's nothing fancy. Don't mind all the brake fluid that you're probably going to see down here, because I put 2 new brake lines in. Again, somehow they rusted out just sitting in my yard for the last couple years. This thing's been sitting. But anyway, so transfer case degree is different. I would say maybe depending on model whether they fit. This is an 89 or 95 Wrangler transmission transfer case. It fits. All bolts up fine. This is my cross member out of this Jeep. So it's just the transmission transfer case are from the Wrangler. Which the Wrangler was also a 2.5, obviously. And here I've got the external slave now, which is a huge bonus to doing this. It's not the internal junk slave. So I called up Advanced Adapters to give me this custom line, because I did a little research. A lot of people, I guess, use them. Steel braided. It's nice. But the big hurdle I had to get over was external slave had this style fitting, but the master cylinder is still an 89 master cylinder. So the ends were different, but I called them up. No big deal. Told them the years and what I had, and they sent me the hose and all the fittings I need, and it's in here. Works perfectly. Bled real easily. The light back over here, and the only other thing I did is I had to get the drive shaft shortened, which all in all, shortening it, they put new U-joints in it and balanced it for me. Just under $100. Have all that done, because this is the original two-wheel drive shaft. It's a little dark. Yeah, new U-joints. I measured it myself, gave them the measurement, and it comes out, goes in perfectly. See, this is where they cut and welded it. So that's very minor to do. My speedometer cable, this is the factory one. I haven't been able to find anyone talking about getting an extension, a longer one, or if there's a difference. I also haven't done a whole lot of research into it, but I stretched it, made it work. I mean, it's a little tight, but I rerouted some of it, but it fits so far. I'll have to let you guys know after I drive it whether it works or not, or whether it's accurate. But yeah, this is the underside. Just another quick thing. Oh, this might be helpful for some people out there. I had to figure it out myself just because I'd never really messed with these very much underneath. For your transfer case, this is technically your drain. It's not hard to pop out, and that's your fill. So, and I used a hand pump that you can pick up at like Harbor Freight, Walmart, just about anywhere. Drained it all out. I actually drained it out the very bottom here, but you should drain it here because you'll get more out, and it flows a little bit quicker too. But anyway, pumped new ATF into it, filled it to the plug, closed it off, good to go. As for the transmission here, I took this plug out, drained all the water and old gear oil that was in it, put it back in. And as for the fill port, you'll see it right here. I believe it was a T50 Torx. I used a socket. Can't really fit a driver up in here, but I've got a Torx socket set, so I used Torx T50 socket. That's your fill. I cleaned out the hand pump, used the same pump to fill this with the synchro mesh. Pretty straightforward stuff. Here's the top side, the clutch master cylinder, brake master cylinder, brake booster, obviously. Anyway, like I said, the line from Advanced Adapters looks pretty nice here. 90s, gave me another fitting, threads right in, all bolts up, threads, tightens very nicely. Currently I'm running .4 because that's what I had when I did that. Yeah, synthetic .4, it'll work. And then I'm just using .3 for the brakes because I didn't have enough .4 and I didn't want to waste it all. But yeah, like I said, I had a couple brake lines somehow break with it just sitting around, even though I've replaced the lines here not too long back. Like I said before, this is a two-part because all I've done is the drivetrain. So I'm trying to get it back on the ground, that way I can get it out of here and I can still use it as a truck and drive it in the meantime. While I prep the axles, because I have two axles out of another 95 XJ, I believe it was. I'm trying to remember now, it's been a couple years since we cut them out. But yeah, it was a donor Jeep I had. I've actually got the transmission out of it. It's over there on the other side of my car. But it was an AX15 because it was actually a 4.0 four-wheel drive XJ. So, well, I have a few plans in mind for that transmission, different drivetrain. I like to keep a couple different drivetrain options for these because you never know when you're going to blow one up on a trail. Anyway, don't mind the beer cans. Like I said, front axle. There's the front axle. Bottom one's over there, right here. So I'm going to go through them, clean them up, probably sandblast them, paint them. Make sure the gears are good in it because that Jeep that they came out of was a mud toy. So I'm hoping they're okay. Oh, another big thing. As for talking about fluids, I did a bit of research on this, see what people liked for transmission fluids, because I always thought it was gear oil, being manual transmission Jeep and transfer case. And the consensus of what I found, people say, I'm a Valvoline guy, so for the engine, I've using Valvoline high mileage for the engine, but the transmission, sorry, for the AX5 transmission, a lot of people like the Pennzoil Synchro Mesh. Hang on, I've got the bottle actually right here. Yeah, Pennzoil Synchro Mesh. I think it took 4. Well, there's still some left, so maybe 3.5. I think it was is what mine took. And when I drained mine, I got about I don't know, quart, half gallon of water or something out of it. So that's the other fun part. See if this transmission's going to hold together. But anyway, Pennzoil Synchro Mesh for the transmission. As for the transfer case, everyone's basically said they like to use just regular ATF. So I just went and got some ATF from Walmart, and that's what I'm running. So, and I got all those fluids changed, so it's ready to go. So we'll see how it goes, how it looks. The big reason that I've read that people like Synchro Mesh is because it's a thinner fluid. It's not as thick as gear oil, but it I guess it's a lot better shifting, and the transmission doesn't make a lot as much noise and stuff like that. It just seems like it's happier with that weight, and I guess it's good fluid. So we'll see. It's the first time I've ever used it, so. But I'm sure it should be fine. So I'm gonna do a quick run through of the parts I've had versus the new stuff I've had to buy to make this conversion work. I already got the axles out of a 95 XJ, which they should just throw back in, throw right in. Everything should bolt up, but that'll be the second part. That'll be later, probably later on this year. But it all depends. I'm working like 4 different projects at once right now. It's horrible. I need to stop doing this, but so axles out of an XJ, transmission and transfer case out of a 95 Wrangler. Got that at a swap meet years ago to do this very thing. So I've had those parts. As to start this project, I started by just pulling the 2-wheel drive transmission out, which transmission was fine. The slave was junk again, and it just intermittently, I guess, wanted to work, because that's the whole reason I parked it, because it felt like it went out again. Pedal went to the floor, no fluid in the reservoir, and then here I go, fired up years later, and all of a sudden I've got clutch again. I don't know. So started by pulling the 2-wheel drive transmission out of it. I left the clutch in it because it's new. I don't think I've got 10,000 miles on it. Left the clutch in it. So when I got it out, I set the transmission side by side. I just swapped my existing sensors over to the new one, just one at a time. Speedometer, back reverse light, and I don't remember what the other one was. Probably a shift indicator or something. Swapped everything over. I got a new throwout bearing for the new transmission, the 95 Wrangler transmission. Got a new throwout bearing and a new slave cylinder because the ones that were on it were old and junk. Installed those. Just got under it, put it in, and it went in actually very, very easily, considering. After getting it in, getting it bolted up and everything, then I did the put the cross member up, which it all worked fine. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is all the same. It's just a newer generation of it. And then I had to, so the first thing I bought, besides the new throwout bearing and the new slave cylinder for this new transmission, I bought the hydraulic clutch line from Advanced Adapters. So I got the right fittings I need to meet my old master cylinder versus the new slave. Got that installed. Length is perfect. I think it's like 42 inches, I want to say, is what this one was. So throwout bearing, new slave, new hydraulic line, which you need. I used the old 2-wheel drive drive shaft, so I went to a local shop that does all sorts of driveline work, and they shortened it for me and balanced it, and it cost me just under $100 out the door. And it fits perfectly. really, that's about it. In the transmission, I use my Comanche's 89 shift tower for it, because the throw is correct in it. The one in the Wrangler, if you use the Wrangler, it'll smack the dash, and I don't want that. The dash is actually in pretty good shape in this Jeep, surprisingly. So not a lot of parts. I'll have to look through my receipts, and I can give you a ballpark of how much I'm into it parts-wise. It's not very much. All that's left to do on this thing right now is I need to finish piecing the exhaust back together, which I'm getting ready to do now, and basically put the wheels on it. Bought some XJ wheels offline, off a guy locally, and just because I like the way they look, because the XJ wheels I'm using are the newer generation. They're silver. I think it'll look fine, look pretty good, since this Comanche silver and paint fade. But yeah, wheels on and finish the exhaust, and we'll see if she drives. So, as we can see, it's emerged on its own power. I mean, I guess it entered on its own power, but it's rolling on good tires now. Making all sorts of wonderful smells from sitting almost 3.5 years. Drove pretty well. Second gear's a little funky. It doesn't really like to stay in second gear all the best, but I suppose at least it moves forward on an unknown transmission that all I knew is it came out of a Wrangler that was blown up. So seems to move and drive fine. Brakes a little working out because, like I said, been sitting. Better view of the axles that will go in it. Just doing some finishing touches. I decided to get out my pressure tester. Just pressure test cooling system, find any leaks, while it's here in the driveway, not while I'm driving it. There was only one. That little hose clamp right there goes to the heater core hose. That clamp was super loose, but yeah, so far it seems to be holding okay. 14-pound system. Yeah, I just took off the idler pulley to get to it, since the belt adjustment isn't wanting to cooperate super well. I wasn't going to force it, so that was an easy way to do it. Other than that, it's coming out pretty well. It's been a couple months now since I've started this video, and I figured I'd get around to completing it now since I've been driving it. The only things about it really are the speedometer is off a couple miles per hour, but it's not enough to worry about. Second gear's a little funky, likes to pop out from time to time. And unfortunately, it seems like the transmission does have a bit of a leak. Like must have like a hairline crack somewhere in it, because I notice it does drip fluid. I need to check it again, but so far it's been getting pretty decent mileage and working out as a nice little truck. Can't wait to finish the four-wheel drive conversion and get the axles in it. Be a lot more useful than an open rear diff two-wheel drive. But yeah, came out pretty well.